Hello, Facebook family, YouTube family, Instagram family, whatever platform you're watching this on. So, welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters, brought to you by Marriage Beyond the Breach. And I'm your girl, Valerie Mason Chase, and this here 6-foot chocolate deliciousness is my husband. Frank Chase, also known as the Cookie Man.
All right.
So anybody who knows me knows that I call my husband the Cookie Man. Those who are real close to me, they know why I call him the Cookie Man. But one of these days, maybe I'll share that story with everybody here. So today, honey, what are we going to talk about?
Fighting fairly.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how do you fight fairly? What does fighting fairly mean? You know, you hear all the time that couples are advised, if you're going to have an argument, you're going to have a discussion, if you're going to have a hard conversation, fight fairly. But what does that mean? It simply means that fighting fairly is a way to effectively manage conflict or difficult conversations in a relationship and the feelings that come up with those conversations. And to fight fairly, you just need some basic ground rules, some basic boundaries and guidelines and parameters in order to fight fairly. And we're going to discuss some of them this evening. And, it may be difficult initially when you're thinking about fighting fairly. But here's the thing. We have our own point of view. Absolutely. I have mine. Absolutely. You have yours. Absolutely. And sometimes I may think his point of view is irrational. It's unfair.
Crazy.
And it
don't want to listen to me.
And sometimes just flat out don't make sense. But guess what? Sometimes he may be thinking the exact same thing about my position. And partners may do that sometimes. Because when we have our own perspective and point of view, sometimes we think ours is more important than the other.
Always. Well, maybe I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times that comes into play. That's why fighting fairly sometimes is a lifelong training session.
Absolutely. And that's something that we are still learning to do after 40 years. It's not a one and done. Hey, Crystal, it's not a one and done. It is an ongoing process. And hopefully you get better as the years go by. So we're going to talk about some of those potential boundaries and guidelines that you can utilize when you are having a difficult conversation or disagreement in order to fight fairly. And the first thing is consider scheduling a specific time to have these hard conversations, because every time is not optimal to have every single discussion.
You'll have too many distractions.
Right.
No one's really paying attention.
You could be tired. You could be hangry. It could be anything.
Hangry?
So, hangry.
Angry? That's a new one? Angry. Okay.
No, hangry. That means hungry, angry.
Oh, got it. Okay. That's like country stuff.
Oh, please. It's not just country. Some city folk know about hangry too. But try to consider scheduling a time to have these conversations, and also have a predetermined notion of what are the goals of the conversation. What is it that you hope to accomplish having this conversation? Is there something particular that you would like to see change in your relationship? Is there something specific that you would like your partner to do or not do or undo or change? So that's one of the things that you can consider. And I know sometimes the last thing a brother wants to hear is, we need to talk.
Oh, Lord.
So,
for real. We need to talk. That usually means you probably did something wrong.
Yeah.
So you definitely, then at that point, you're not ready to talk.
Yeah. And I don't think those are necessarily the right words to use.
Right.
You can say to your spouse, sweetie, there is something I've had on my mind recently that I would like for us to have a conversation about.
See, I'd be more receptive to that.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk about it, maybe Tuesday, you're getting off early after you have dinner. Can we sit down and can we talk about it?
Okay, sure.
I think that's more approachable.
No, that would work. That would work. Yeah. I'd personally be more willing to listen. Even though if it's Sunday, I can hear myself saying, oh God, Tuesday's coming. What is it? What is it? But then me also knowing myself, I said, why we got to wait till Tuesday? Let's get it out the way now.
Yeah. Hey, Angel, good to see you. Thanks for joining in. And But if he insisted and say, okay, no, Val, don't wait till Tuesday. Let's talk about it now. I would say, okay, well, let's talk about it now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes you may want to try to put it off until a better time. So, Frank, what's another guideline that couples can consider?
Well, one of the things you have to remain calm. Mm-hmm. Try to talk in a tone that's receivable. Mm. And those are two tough issues, depending on what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
You might start the conversation. You're already loud. The person's not listening to you. So even at that point, you might have to take a minute, regroup, take a breath, take a smoke, whatever you might do, and come back, because you want to be heard. And if you're screaming and yelling and ranting and raving, no one's listening. Nothing's going to get done.
Absolutely. Tone. That's one of those T's. Timing, tone, and temperature. Mm. Tone means a lot. Your tone of voice and the way you're speaking to your partner will determine to a great deal how much, if anything, they're going to hear about what you say. Because if you're yelling and screaming, or you're talking in a nasty tone of voice, or if you're doing the sister chicken necking thing, you might not be heard so good.
We ain't trying to hear that.
We ain't trying to hear that, brother.
We hearing it, but we ain't here. We there, but we're not hearing it.
Yeah. So Angel said she needs to work on her tone, and you know what, sister, I'm so glad you said that, because I often have to work on my tone of voice when I'm talking to my husband, because many times, hey, Stacy, many times Frank has had to say to me, Val, watch your tone. Watch your tone. And I got to tell you, I'm keeping it real. Sometimes I resent him for saying that to me, because I think I'm speaking in an okay tone of voice, but he has to tell me sometimes.
But it's not so much what the person who's speaking thinks how they're sounding. It's the receiver. It matters to them what they're hearing, how they perceive it.
Right.
So if they'd say to you, suggest to you in a nice, calm tone, could you bring yours down?
Yes.
Hopefully you'll do that.
Hopefully I'll do that. Babe, I'll do it next time.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah, I do it next time. Or I get the sister shape, But you try to forge through.
You try to forge through. Another thing to consider when you want to fight fairly is be specific about what is bothering you and why.
Right. Do not say, you know what's wrong.
Hey.
No, I don't know. You're supposed to know what's wrong.
Right.
Why? Did you tell me? Well, I don't know. Well, we've been together. You're supposed to know. I'm not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Be very, very specific. Don't kind of speak in generalities. Don't be vague. Or like Frank said, don't say, well, you know what? You should know. We've been together. No. That indicates you are expecting your partner to be a mind reader. And we're spouses. We're partners. We're in this thing together, but I don't know what's going on in his mind. He don't know what's going on in my mind. Sometimes we think we do.
And sometimes we right.
Yeah, but a whole lot of time you ain't. A whole lot of time you ain't. No, we ain't. Absolutely right. Because there have been times when Frank said, well, go ahead and say it. But I kind of know what you're thinking. And I say, no, brother, you don't. Absolutely not. So be very specific.
Yes.
And don't generalize. Something I ask my couples that I counsel, 2 words. I ask them to remove from their vocabulary when they're talking to their spouse. Those 2 words are always and never. Those words can really cause defensiveness in your partner. Nobody always does anything, and nobody never does nothing. It may seem like always, it may feel like always, but nobody always does anything. So I counsel my couples, remove those 2 words from your vocabulary and be specific. If it's a particular time that your spouse has done something and you want to talk about, reference that particular time, but don't say, every time we talk about this, so-and-so, and you always say, no, always and never. Treat those words like they don't even exist when you are talking to your spouse. What's another one, Frank?
Something we always talk about, something that I do. Sometimes I use a conversation. I'll describe it as a tree. Tree that has been rooted in the ground for years. And what's underneath there? A lot of roots going all different kind of ways. So my thing is, when we have a conversation, I said, babe, it's like a tree. It can go anywhere it wants to. but got to be specific and talk about one thing at a time.
Yes. One issue at a time. Don't do the pile-on game when you're adding on this and you're adding on this and you're adding on this and nothing's going to get resolved. Stick to one issue at a time. And I have to remind the Cookie Man about this a whole lot, because the Cookie Man, he want to start talking about this and that and going here. And I said, wait, the conversation has gone left. And that's when he tried to say, well, Val, it's like branches on a tree and it could go here. And I go, no, boo. We're talking about this. Let's talk about this.
But in defense of myself, sometimes as I start to speak about something comes into my head that I didn't get a chance to speak about last time for whatever reason. And I don't want to forget this time, so I kind of bring that in too, and it, of course, it sets us off in different avenues.
Yeah.
And maybe the thing we should be trying to settle gets muddled and everything else. But sometimes I'm okay with that.
No, I'm not okay with that. I want to stick to the topic at hand. Let's talk about this. And I always tell him, listen, whatever it is, whatever other thing you want to discuss, we can have a conversation about that too. But right now, let's deal with this. And let's try to get some resolution or compromise with this issue. And then I'm happy to move on to the next thing. But one thing at a time. Another guideline is don't talk to win. Talk to be understood. Because you're not in a battle with your mate, with your partner. It's not a competition. There's no I win, you lose, you win, I lose. No, I'm speaking because I want to be heard. I want to be understood. It's not about winning. Because if you feel that you have won in a conversation and your partner has lost, in essence, really, both of y'all have lost.
And earlier I referenced to fighting fairly is a lifelong lesson. And when I say that, I had to learn how to take away that winning, because I never looked at it as, well, I won and she lost. I couldn't comprehend it too. I just felt, I had something to say. I needed to say it. I was going to get it out anyway. And I felt kind of victorious because I was heard, not realizing what I was doing for the big picture.
Yeah.
So it's still a learning process, because sometimes I still got to feel like going to the room. Yeah. She heard that. She heard me. But you don't want to sound like you're winning, like it was a big fight.
Absolutely. And I remember a time, Frank doesn't do this any longer, praise God. But there was a time in our relationship when we would be having conversations and I would start talking. And then Frank would just jump in and say, I said, babe, let me finish. No. I'm not going to let you finish. Man, I'd be all kind of pissed off. But what I'm trying to do, I'm still trying to talk. No. Thank you, Jesus. He does not do that anymore. I praise God for that, because that was hard having conversations with him when he was doing that. Very, very hard to have those kind of conversations. So it's not about winning. It's about communicating, and it is about being understood and understanding your partner.
Correct.
Okay, so what's something else, Frank?
This was another challenge for me. When Val would be speaking to me, having a conversation, I would answer her, but it wasn't what she was talking about.
Right.
So she would always say, Frank, maybe you need to learn how to do this. I'm making a suggestion, she would say. Repeat back to me, meaning her, what I just heard. Because sometimes what you hear is not what has been said.
Absolutely.
So now you're giving an answer to something you think you heard, but it wasn't what was spoken to you. So you have to learn to, especially if you need to. Sometimes now I even find myself, well, babe, I'm going to say back to you what I think you said. And hopefully I got it right. Yeah. That means I was listening better than ever before. And if not, be able to accept, no, that's not what I said.
Right.
This is what I said. Because that's still that had always been a problem to me sometimes. Absolutely. No, I didn't say that, but that's what I heard. But Frank, that's not what I said.
Absolutely.
This is what I said. And this way, now having that knowledge, you can give a better response and answer to what the issue is.
Hey, Leslie. Hey, Maggie. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And that, I'm telling you, that repeat back, you don't realize how much you miss of what your partner says until you utilize that speaker listener mode. Let me tell you something. I do that with my couples too that I counsel. I'll have them face each other, and one will be the speaker, one will be the listener, and the listener has to repeat back what they heard the speaker say. And I'm gonna tell you, sometimes they got to go 5 times, 6 times, because I said, listen, no, we're not going to move from this right here until you get it right, until you have successfully repeated back to your partner what they said to you. Partner will say, the speaker will say something, the listener will say something, and it could be way off left field. And they'll try to paraphrase in such a way and twist up their words. And I'll ask the speaker, is that what you said? And they'll say, no, Miss Valerie, that's not what I heard. Okay, say it again. They'll say it again. The listener listens, repeats it back, gets it wrong. Okay, is that what you said? No, Miss Valerie, that's not what I said. Okay, say it again. And I'm telling you, no lie, there have been times when I've had to do that 5 times with a particular couple. And I particularly do this because we don't realize how much we miss when we're communicating to each other. And we don't realize how much we twist around our partner's words to make it say what we want them to say or what we anticipated that they would say or expected them to say.
Especially if you feel you have to defend yourself. So when you're doing that, of course, you're going to kind of twist it around to sound more safe, make you feel more safe in the conversation.
Absolutely. So I think it's very important to have conversations with using that speaker listener mode where one speaks, the other listens, repeat back, this is what I heard you say. And hopefully you'll get it right. And when you get it right, then you can move on from there, because it's hard to have a conversation if we are totally missing each other and don't understand each other. Another thing I like to do is to use I statements. You know, don't say, I don't want to say different. Listen, when you leave that toilet seat up, you piss me off. I can't stand it when you do that.
Use the other bathroom, I say.
But lead with an I statement. Say something like, when so-and-so happens, I feel this. Or when we're out together at a function and I don't know many people there and you walk off and leave me, I feel lonely. I feel abandoned. I feel left. That may stir up some abandonment issues within me when that happens. So that is putting the onus on me and letting my partner know how I feel based on what was done, rather than just pointing out, listen, I was sitting there for 45 minutes by myself at this party and you just walked off and left me. That's negative. But saying, you know, sweetie, when I was sitting there for those 45 minutes, I felt lonely and I felt abandoned. That's very different. How would you receive one as opposed to the other?
I would like the latter better, because at that point, I'd like to think I'd be more apt to say, well, hey, babe, you know, why don't you walk around with me? I can, especially if it's at a place where I might know the most people, which is probably won't ever happen. But if it did, and I wanted to take a walk around, there's nothing wrong with saying, especially if I have pride and notice that my leaving might make her feel a certain way. Come on, take a walk with me. Hopefully she'll say no. But if she doesn't, come on,
why would you want me to say no?
Because I might be talking to some of the fellas. You don't need to be around that.
Well,
you know?
I wouldn't want to be all up under you and the fellas.
Yeah,
you know,
you never know. But either way,
no. Fellas use they have certain conversations.
We got the code.
Don't want to hear. I don't want to hear the fellas' conversation. I don't care how much Holy Ghost they got. I don't want to hear the fellas' conversation when they all get together. So, what's something else, Frank?
Okay, we have kind of looking down, reading. In a conversation, again, you don't want to be blaming someone, shaming, or being defensive. Now, the first two, I like to think I don't do as much, but I can see myself being defensive. I always, for whatever reason, especially if it was something we had a conversation before that I was asked to do or shouldn't do and forgot to do it, or I'm still doing it and it comes up again. I don't know how to phrase it other than I get defensive. Yeah. Is it a macho thing?
Yeah.
Is it accountability? And because I know I didn't do it, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
So to lessen that guilt, I become defensive. So those two things, blaming, shaming, and being defensive. Oh, and the last thing, no name calling. You definitely don't want to be calling your spouse or your significant other one out of their name. Do we do it? But when you do it, because I'll be lying if to say it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge it happened. Be big enough to apologize.
Right.
You might not do it in the midst of the conversation, but you come back. Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone there. I apologize.
Absolutely. No blaming, shaming, or defensiveness. And, name calling is really a bad thing. I think we are skipping a lot here. My Wi-Fi must be kind of really jacked up because I see us skipping a lot, and I apologize for that. I don't know how to fix it, but hopefully next time it won't be as bad. Another thing to consider when you're having a hard conversation is if during the conversation, or if it's about choosing between two options, be willing to openly and honestly discuss the pros and the cons of each option. Just because it's your option doesn't mean that it's better. Doesn't mean that has all the pros. Doesn't mean your partner has all the cons. I'm looking at it here over here, babe, and it is skipping a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
You can see where it's stalling there. So again, I apologize for that.
It's not doing it over here.
Yeah. Well, that's because this is the view on Facebook here, and this is the view on StreamYard.
Okay.
So anywho, again, I apologize for the skipping. I hope it's not too bad, and that you're able to get through it. But choosing between two options, honestly discuss the pros and the cons of both options, even the cons of your own choice, because every option is not just positives. There are pros and cons to every particular choice. And when you're having a discussion, especially if it's something that your partner's saying that you feel like you don't want to hear, don't clam up, don't shut down. Participate in the conversation. Don't clam up and leave your partner out there all by themselves, just hanging out on the limb. What are your thoughts on that, Frank?
Well, I would agree 100%, obviously. And I say that because if you're not participating, I'm going to go one of two ways. I'm going to stop talking to you, or I'm going to think you're being disrespectful, or you're not listening, or what I'm saying is not important enough to you. So now I walk away. I feel left out. I feel upset. Now there's something else we have to discuss and talk about. So yeah. Try to be an active participant. Mm-hmm. Or if at that time, if you're not ready to discuss whatever it is, hey, you got to participate, if nothing else, by saying, honey, not right now. Can we talk about this in 20 minutes or something like that?
Or even the next day. Mm-hmm. It might be the next day. I know that adage about, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't go to bed angry. And okay, you don't want to go to bed angry, but you don't want to stay up till 4:00 in the morning either, trying to resolve something. So sometimes you may have to table it and say, okay, babe, I see that we are not reaching any resolution here. Mm-hmm. You have to go to work in the morning. I have to go to work in the morning. Let's just right now table this, and we can pick it up tomorrow when we both come home, and we can finish our conversation. But don't stay up to 4 o'clock in the morning if you have to get up and go to work. Now, if y'all both retired, ain't nobody get up and go to work, and y'all choose to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning until you can resolve this thing, fine. But if it's only fair to be considerate of the other. Mm-hmm. If the other says, I see we are not making any headway with this conversation, can we please just table this and we'll pick it up tomorrow? But the thing is, do it. You got to keep your word. You have to keep your word, because if you don't, the next time you want to table it, your partner's not going to want to hear that. No. Last time you said that, we didn't finish this conversation. I don't care if we break sun, if we break day, we are going to finish this conversation. So if you choose to table it, you have to keep your word. And here's this thing skipping again. I can see it skipping. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the last thing we're going to talk about, what's that, Frank? And he knows why. He's going to mention this one. So go ahead.
Don't interrupt your partner. This is an everyday, every minute, every word. Now, I'm emphasizing, I'm stretching a little bit, but don't interrupt. For me personally, it it gnaws at me. When I'm I could be having the most benign conversation, but if I'm interrupted, I get angry. Now I won't get angry, but I do feel a little something. And I hear myself, and I'm constantly telling Val, because I come home and I have a story that I want to tell, and she'll start asking me questions. I said, well, Val, if you let me finish, the question you just asked would have been answered because it's part of the story. But that is a head slapper, all kind of slappers to me when you are constantly interrupting me.
I know.
And she always say, and sometimes I laugh, because you got to laugh at some things. You got to laugh at some things that even know you the wrong way. Other times I get upset, but I keep hearing her saying, I'm going to get better. Then you get the silly look, the wifey look, when they finally admit they messed up, which doesn't happen that often, to say, okay, I'm going to get better. I hope for that day it'll happen, but don't interrupt.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I am really, really working on improving that, because Frank has indicated on numerous occasions how much that bothers him. And my continuing to do it really is disrespectful. It's disrespectful of his feelings. It's totally disrespectful of the conversation. So yeah, I am working on it, and I want to be totally transparent and be totally honest. And this is something that I am struggling with, because, and there's no, let me just rephrase that. I can probably try to come up with reasons why I do that, but there is really no justifiable reason for interrupting him in the middle of a conversation. So yeah, that, I think that is a biggie, and I think that's something that bothers a lot of people.
I'm sure.
In their relationships when they're talking to their spouse and trying to have those conversations. So again, tonight we talked about tips for fighting fairly. We talked about scheduling a time. We said remain calm and speak in a normal voice. Don't generalize. And remove the words never and always from the conversation. We said deal with one issue at a time and don't bring up things from the past during this conversation. Don't talk to win. Talk to be heard, understood, and also to understand your partner. Use the speaker listener technique and repeat back to your partner what you heard them say. Use I statements when you are communicating how you feel. Don't blame, don't shame, don't become defensive, and don't call names. Don't call your partner out of their name. If you're choosing between two options, discuss the pros and the cons of both options. Participate in the conversation. You don't want to shut down. You don't want to clam up. And by all means, don't interrupt your partner. So again, I really apologize for all the skipping, and I'm looking at it here on my phone, and I can see that it's skipping a lot and stalled a lot. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I can do to fix it, but I will try to figure it out. So again, we thank you for participating. We appreciate you being here live, or whether you listen to it later. Please share. I always forget to say, like, share, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and it will be on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, because I think it'll end up being on all those particular platforms. Oh, Angel said there was no skipping on her end. Praise God. I appreciate that. It was skipping on mine. So I appreciate that, Angels. Thank you so much for your feedback. So as always, I want to just let you know that if you and your partner, or if you know a couple that need help in navigating the complexities in a relationship, if they need help, hey, Patricia Haynes. Oh, I'm sorry, I got excited. Patricia,
Pat?
Yes, from Brookdale. Hey,
Pat. Well, can you see us?
Yeah, right. Just wave to her.
Hey, Pat.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, Pat Haynes. Anyway, I'm sorry. Pat and I were colleagues at Brookdale Hospital in Brooklyn back in 1979, 1980. We were on 11 Alive, 11 CHC. That was the place to be, Pat. So anyway, so Angel, yes, YouTube is by the same name, Marriage Beyond the Breach. If you go to YouTube, it's Marriage Beyond the Breach on YouTube. It's Marriage Beyond the Breach. It's at Marriage Beyond the Breach on Instagram as well. And for those of you who are married or in a committed relationship, and if you need help in that relationship, we are here to help you. Reach out to marriagebeyondthebreach.com. Marriagebeyondthebreach.com is our website. And you can schedule an initial free 30-minute consultation, because I always like to offer that to prospective clients, because I know that, listen, marriage beyond the breach is not the be all and end all. And I know I'm not the right fit for every single couple. So I always like to have that conversation, that consultation, so that they can interview me and ascertain as to whether or not they feel I am the right fit for them. And if I'm not, I will be happy to make other recommendations. I have lots of counselor colleagues. And listen, there's room at the table for everyone. I have lots of counselor colleagues. And if I'm not a good fit, I'll be happy to recommend someone. But by all means, if you need help, get help. And I just want to say again that, hey, Sadell, does that apply to family as well? Yes, by all means. I have a firm belief that when couples are committed to each other, when they're committed to their marriage or relationship, when they put God in the midst, in the forefront, in the center of their relationship, and they are willing to do the work, no marriage is beyond redemption, right, babe?
That's true. It be when you start to do those things, it becomes more than just about you. You know, that selfishness gets removed, and it's about the people, the marriage, the repairing, the coming back together, the love, all of those things.
Yes. No marriage is beyond redemption. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And again, like, share, and subscribe, depending upon whatever platform you're watching this on. And also, I just want to tell you, on next week, we're going to be talking about navigating health issues in a relationship. Because sometimes, you know, we say for better or worse, richer for poor, sickness and in health. But we usually are pretty healthy when we make that commitment. But when one or the other partner is not healthy and you're having to deal with those health issues, how do you navigate that? We have a special couple that's going to be with us on next week. My brother friend, Daniel Taylor, and his wife, Rachel, they're going to come and they're going to share with us how they are navigating dealing with health issues. So again, thank you. And I will see you next week.
Love, God bless. Peace, and soul.
Oh, he think he Don Cornelius now.
Went out the head.